tradition, spirituality, the power of flowers beyond just decoration. How exactly is that faring? From Hum Aapke Kaun to Bada Naam Karega Suraj Barjatia Unfiltered with the Breakfast Club. This is the time when we talk about big city dreams, small town realities, how his own storytelling narrative has evolved over time. And since it's Friday, we thought we look at some releases, but in, well, TBC style, because the box office brawl of Interstellar versus Badass Ravi Kumar is here. It's the Titans clash, really. Christopher Nolan versus Himesh Reshamya. And in this re-release revival of the two, Abhijit brings you his funny take. And it's Friday, so of course we have all the entertainment lowdown of the week for you, from Kaine and Bianca's Grammy after party antics to Chandrika Tandon winning the Grammy as Zakir Hussain gets snubbed. All of those details along with what's happening in the Justin Baldoni case coming up on the program. Alright, they bloom, they fade, but their impact lasts forever. What am I talking about? Flowers. Flowers are woven into human history, culture, and even our emotions. Every petal carries a meaning, but as global trends dominate, are we losing touch with India's indigenous flower heritage? Well, this morning, as Valentine's fever takes over, Rose Day kicks in, let's talk about something beyond the rose. Let's talk about some of the most forgotten native flowers of India, their deep-rooted role in tradition, in our festivals, in our lives. With commercial floristry also shaping modern preferences, are Mogra, Marigold, Hibiscus, Raat Ki Rani, Harsingar, are they going to make a comeback? Are they being replaced at some level by these Western imports? And is there time now that we actually come back and celebrate all of them? So we thought we'll just do that with you this morning. So get ready for a very flowery start to your Friday morning, and joining us are two guests who perhaps understand this, love this more than anybody else. Joining us is Ambika Gulati. She's a writer and journalist who has documented the power of flowers across culture. She writes a very beautiful blog post. And also with us is Swami Prem Parivartan, and if you don't know him already, you perhaps have seen his reels as he goes by the popular name of People Baba. He's an environmentalist. He's dedicated to preserving India's floral wealth as well. So good morning to both of you. Thank you so much for joining us. And if I can begin with you, Parivartan ji, हमने फूलों की बात करी. We spoke about how some of the flowers are almost forgotten in India. Some of them, how 90s kids grew up in your nani's backyard. You know, those are barely found here in urban lifestyle. If I had to start by asking you your few picks on what you think are the flowers that need to make a comeback.
Well, I would like to start with the national flower of India, the lotus. You know, we've completely forgotten that, and in fact the Indian lotus, which we simply call the lotus, the pink lotus and the red lotus, it symbolizes love. It symbolizes compassion. It symbolizes spiritual enlightenment, and it symbolizes rebirth. And that is why you will see all the Buddha statues. You know, wherever you go to the Orient, you go to
even Goddess Saraswati for that matter.
So I think this is something which is, you know, lotus is something which needs to be relooked at. And of course, I have seen in flower cities like Pune, in, you know, where we are doing a lot of forestry work over there. And we see a lot of people coming up with lotus as a, you know, alternative to I've seen it in parties, you know, to the Valentine rose. Then you have the sunflower. We need to understand that sunflower also, even in Greek mythology, sunflower symbolizes consistency in love, you know. So, to be, yes. And then we have hibiscus. we have about 42 varieties of hibiscus in this country, various flowers. But some of the main ones, gudhal जिसको हम बोलते हैं, तो ये जो गुड़हल होता है, this is offered to Ganesha and Kali. So these are offering, the temple offering, these are the flowers. And of course, then we have the Harsinghar, the Parijat जिसको बोलते हैं, the night flowering jasmine,
Yeah.
which is so much in South India. If you see, in fact, South India leads when it comes to use of flowers as temple offerings. That in the north, and the revival I have seen in the past 6 years, ever since 2018 onwards, and especially after COVID, the charm of the rose has gone down a bit. Of course, it is in the urban areas, but semi-urban, tier 3 cities, I have seen that many people have started giving other kind of bouquets and other kind of flowers, and which is a very encouraging thing. And let me tell you, as Give Me Trees Trust, that the entire campaign that we have been running for last 47 years, from Rose Day to Valentine's Day, we are celebrating as a flower week.
Oh,
Because
nice.
people need to understand that we have so many beautiful indigenous flowers that need to be highlighted. And if we don't create that narrative, I'm so glad that in your program you are creating this talk, this discussion, because we don't discuss flowers.
Yeah.
Flower is just to be given to a loved one, or to a birthday or anniversary, or a flower to a temple. है ना? But it's a very, very important thing. There are two important things about the flower.
Okay.
That is the color, which creates it as a conspicuous item. So color and fragrance. और कलर और फ्रेग्रेंस के कारण ही उसकी सारी आपकी सेक्रेट माइथोलॉजी बनती है ना? इस तरह की फ्रेग्रेंस है, फिर आपके मोगरा की एक फ्रेग्रेंस है, फिर चांदनी की है, सिंगल चांदनी, डबल चांदनी आजकल जैसे नर्स. So it is the fragrance and most important thing, people forget that it is not just a temple offering or an offering to the loved one. Most important thing is our survival depends on that, because insects, the bees, the butterflies, the birds, the pollinators, the whole world moves around flowers. If you have flowers, you won't have crops.
Yeah.
You won't have a harvest. You won't have fruiting. You won't have seeds. You won't have seed dispersal. You won't have expansion of vegetation. Here, your point of indigenous floral diversity, that comes in. Because if we don't promote our own flowers, क्या होता है कि this is a fashion कि बाहर का modified colors यूरोप से लाना, tulips को लाना. So I hear a lot of people trying to grow tulips in Delhi. That's not the thing. So you have to promote native. We have to understand हमारा जो weather system है, हमारे जो climate system है, हमारा जो soil, हमारी जो hydrology है, what of soil, so ecosystem होता है flower.
So परिवर्तन जी, आपने बहुत सारी बातें बोली हैं. One is the ecosystem, on what role do flowers play, especially indigenous flowers play in that entire ecosystem. You've spoken about how indigenous flowers need to be spoken about more, and you also talked about the aspect of commercialization. How flowers are sometimes somebody's, in this week perhaps everybody's talking about it, but then they would be forgotten. So I want to touch upon all of this one by one, but let me also bring in Ambika at this point. Ambika, for all of you who don't know, writes a very beautiful blog which is dedicated to flowers. In fact, it is through her blog that I got to know that Noida has a very flowering and a very sort of biodiversity park which has to be spoken about. So Ambika, congratulations to you to actually putting the spotlight on stuff like this. But talk to me a little bit about has the meaning of flowers changed in our lives? Like, there was a time where flowers would be used in temple as a sense of devotion. There is a time where you still use it for expressing love, for saying sorry. Have flowers gone beyond that meaning at all in your understanding?
Hello, Sonal. Thank you. You got to know about Noida Biodiversity Park. Sorry. That's my regular walking joint. It's very close from my house. So I go there on a daily basis. And, over a period of time, during my daily walks, I realized that flowers have actually not lost their meaning. They're definitely more than just sacred offerings. Because as you go and you explore the park, or you just even go near flower beds, you realize that they attract more people. And you see kids are playing around the flower beds and they're taking pictures. Even people are making reels around them. So maybe they don't understand the importance, as people Baba was saying, but they do understand the beauty of it. They do understand that they need to have more flowers around them because it's just so beautiful. Though going by the trend, I would definitely say that in the decorative space, the exotic flowers have taken over,
Yeah.
and we could do with more indigenous flowers there because flowers really brighten up our day. I'm sure all of us, when we look at flowers or the daily good mornings that float on WhatsApp, I'm sure that's the thing that makes, maybe we get exhausted with all the
Yeah.
good mornings blocking our chats, but the flower itself is such a brightening photograph
Huh.
and such a brightening species that you just go on looking at them. So I don't think we are actually over flowers or we can ever go beyond flowers.
So, Parivartanji, can I ask you on that note, why do you think indigenous flowers, like I said, something that we would find in the backyards of our nani house or dadi house when we were growing up, why do you think that's missing in a commercial use? Why do I see more orchids maybe in a decorative setting? Is it got to do with the longevity of these flowers?
See, there are many reasons to it. First of all, I totally agree with Ambika ji. She pointed out very rightly that the exotic flowers have taken over the decorative space. Absolutely. That is exactly my observation also. But here, since I'm related to environment, since I'm related to building ecosystems, what I feel is there's a lack of education and awareness of indigenous flowers. जो दिखता है वो बिकता है, right? So if we start promoting exotic flowers, and there's no harm in, because flower means poetry. Flower is such a beautiful thing, as
Yeah.
Ambika also said, that बहुत बार होता है कि we go to these botany departments and people are very talking very passionately about flowers, and this flower is not good and that. So I see परमात्मा ने सारे फ्लावर्स बनाए हैं. God has created everything. Nature has created. There's nothing good or bad thing about it. So, but at the same time, for the sake of our insects, indigenous insects, right? For the sake of the ecosystem, let the exotic flowers bloom. Let the people enjoy whatever commercially what they buy, what they give to each other. But at the same time, as environmentalists, as botanists, as people on the land, it is our duty, and it is the duty of governments also, the local, state, and central governments also, environment ministry, to promote indigenous flowers because it is healthy. It is suited to our environment. It is suited to soil. It is suited to our hydrology.
But Parivartanji, when you say promote, expand on
Awareness.
that a little bit. What do you mean by that? Do
When
you
I say
mean
what?
plant it in your house? Do you mean use it more often in, gifting people? How exactly?
Yeah, like we have this campaign of setting up rooftop gardens for people. So we just encourage them. We tell them, okay, you need seeds, you take it from us. You need compost, you take it from us. You need small planters, you take it from us. But please create flower gardens because it's very, very important for the insects and the bees and the butterflies. So there are certain flowers which help in pollination. जैसे बोगनविला है, उसमें nectar तो उसमें pollination का नहीं होता, but it's very important for the insects. So indigenous flowers are easy to grow. They are cheaper to buy also. If you go to a nursery and you ask for good health, and you ask for jasmine, you ask for parijat, you ask for harsa, you ask for chandni, single chandni, champa, so he will give you for 10 rupees, 20 rupees, 12 rupees, 18 rupees a pack. But if you go for exotic species, like Ambika ji was saying, then he will charge you 100, 150, 80, maybe 200. So it is easier, and you can have a broader mass base to it. And it is always better to, जैसे हम native food अपना promote करते हैं, native promote करते हैं, native trees promote. The same thing, there is no harm in educating people about the beauty and the reliability, and it's rough and tough because they are made for this environment. So I think and just like Gudhal is very it's one of my favorites. Then marigold species जितने भी हैं जो हमारे देश हम जाफरान जितने भी हमारे देश गेंदे होते हैं, फिर देन ही स्पेशली परिजात ब्यूटीफुल, उसकी जो फ्रेग्रेंस होती है, रात की रानी है, मोगरा है, you just can't beat them. No road can
Actually, if you're walking on the road in one of these old societies in Delhi or NCR, if you walk at night, you can just tell if there is a Raat Ki Rani somewhere, right? It brings in so much of peace, nostalgia, and the rest of it. So why not have more? Which is what I'm trying to get at. That what is stopping us? I'll just come back to you, Parivartanji. Ambika, I want to understand this from you. You know, people travel to Japan for the cherry blossom festival. People go all the way to Kashmir when there's a tulip gardens in full bloom. There used to be a rose garden back in Chandigarh, if I remember correctly, which was very, very popular, which again was there to sort of make people aware, bring them together. Why don't we see that happening more often? Or are there really spaces like that that exist and we perhaps don't know that in the mainstream?
Yeah. There are spaces like that, definitely, Sonal. I mean, Noida, the entrance of Noida Sector 15A, it has a rose garden. And then there are flower shows, which is in Noida also from February 20th, a flower show is going to be held. So Delhi tourism holds a lot of flower shows in the Garden of Five Senses and other places. Though I would agree that we do rush to see tulips more than we rush to see the other flower shows.
Yeah.
So when Chanakyapuri, the tulip festival comes on, all of us are rushing there to take pictures. Probably, I think, because since they are not so common and we are not used to seeing them in Delhi, and the hype is so much about them coming from Netherlands, that it attracts us. But having said that, I would say that I find a lot of people go to the Noida Flower Show. A lot of people go to the Garden of Five Senses and even the Lodi Park. So Lodi Gardens is like full of people all the time throughout the year. And over there you will see different things blooming. Right now also I think they have some tulip, some beds of tulip along with the other flowers. But my personal liking is for jasmine. Last September I used to see all the butterflies, line butterflies around jasmine. And it was one of the most fascinating sights. I would never miss it. All of September I did that, 31 days. Every morning at dawn, I would just go to see that vista. So I think we have to tune ourselves back to the beauty instead of being in a rush. You know, in cities, we are always heading towards, I have to get up, I have to rush, I have to catch a bus, or I have to catch the metro, or I have to go to work. We're not taking out even 5 or 10 minutes to just sit by the flowers and observe and understand them. I think that part is more important.
Right. Since all of us are talking about favorites, let me mention mine. It's definitely Madhumalti. I remember growing up in my grandmom's backyard, it would be hanging in massive bushes right behind the little bit of a jhula, and it was the best thing one could get. And it was a great flower to have in the summers because it would give you so much cool air, which is what you're right is missing in urban centers, which is what I want to get some solutions to. परिवर्तन जी कैसे परिवर्तन करें इसका urban life में जहाँ लोग flats में रहते हैं, छोटे घरों में रहते हैं, गंदी हवा लेते हैं और बहुत सारा रेंट पे करते हैं, ऐसे लोगों को आप क्या एडवाइस देंगे कि वो कैसे अपनी ज़िंदगी में थोड़े इंडिजिनस फ्लावर्स लेकर आएं?
हाँ, जैसे मधुमालती आपने बोला ना, तो मधुमालती इज इंडिजिनस. मधुमालती इज हमारा इस एरिया का भी बहुत अच्छा उगता है इस इकोसिस्टम में, एंड वी यूज इट फॉर बायोफेंसिंग. जैसे instead of bougainvillea, we use मधुमालती, and thousands and lakhs में हम लगाते हैं अपने जितने भी स्टेशन एरियाज और फेंसिंग में हो. So Madhumalti is a very, very good option, and we encourage Madhumalti to all the terrace garden people, all the balcony, जो भी gardens के लिए आते हैं. So education is a master key. तक आप educate करो, softly बच्चों को बताओ. अब जैसे standard के बच्चे हैं, primary school, and this is what we are doing. So primary school के जो बच्चे हैं, we go and talk about flowers, we talk about butterflies, we talk about bees. You know, you don't have to lecture people. You can't carry a stick and get them to love flowers and love plant. But if you educate them and you tell them that pollination will not take place, so it's a long thing, but education is the major thing. And you got to catch them young.
Yeah.
if आप 60-year-old को, 40-year-old को, 80-year-old को, उसको ठीक है, उसको एक ब्यूटी और पोइट्री के लेवल पे आप समझा सकते हो, बट बच्चे को जो आप समझाते हो ना, इट स्टेज विद लॉन्ग टाइम.
Correct.
एट द एज ऑफ 6, I was first introduced to hibiscus and as a shoe flower, and my teacher Mr. Williams in the 4th grade, she used to say that वो red जो hibiscus है, उससे आप काले जूतों को पॉलिश कर सकते हो. So this is the way we were introduced to flowers.
Wow.
But at the same time, one beautiful thing she used to say, flowers were created by nature for nature, not for you to pluck it and put it somewhere. So it should be only need based. हम लोगों को भी समझाते हैं, जैसे पीली कनेर भी लगी होती है तो लोग सोमवार को सुबह प्लग करके उसको शिव जी के ऊपर चढ़ाते हैं. तो मैं बहुत अंकल आंटियों को समझाता भी हूँ कि जितने चाहिए आप 4 ले लीजिए, लेकिन ये मत कीजिए कि आप सारी की सारी रोज जो है सारे आप फ्लावर्स प्लग करके और आप उसको मंदिर लेके जा रहे हैं या कहीं भी लेके जाते हैं, अपने पूजा स्थल में लेके. सो वी हैव टू मेक देम अवेयर दैट फ्लावर्स आर बेस्ट व्हेन दे आर ऑन द प्लांट, है ना, बिकॉज they belong there. They are beautiful because they are on the plant. The moment you pluck a flower, it starts then degenerating. And insects need them. हम pollinators के बारे में बिल्कुल बात नहीं करते. So here I would like to, जब आपने कहा कि कैसे करेंगे, हम पहले pollinators के बारे में बताते हैं. Pollinators के बारे में पूरी स्टोरी बता के फिर उनको बताते हैं flowers के बारे में. Then the dots are connected. Then बच्चों को समझ आता है. और हम कॉलेजेस में भी जाए, वी आर गोइंग टू दिल्ली यूनिवर्सिटी कॉलेजेस आल्सो, एंड दिस वीक वी आर डूइंग अबाउट nearly 40 sessions we are doing with various educational institutions. We are only talking flowers.
Yeah.
And you need to be excited, you need to be passionate, and if the storyteller is not passionate, if he or she, first of all, he or she should have the knowledge, and you need to convince the masses that flowers are a very, very essential ingredient. Then we give
essential indeed. And can I end on a positive note? It's so nice that you have people like People Baba, you have people like Ambika who are speaking about it, writing about it, getting the right kind of education out there. All you have to do is listen. All you have to do is take out 5 minutes and understand truly what they want to say. Also, my big takeaway is that you can polish your shoe with hibiscus. Well, I'm going to try that when I get back home today to see how that works. Thank you so much, both of you, for joining us on this very colorful discussion to understand how and where do the indigenous flowers of India really belong and how can they really stay in their full bloom. All right, so that's something to think about, isn't it, today on Rose Day? When you think about your loved one, when you think about gifting somebody something, think about maybe a plant, if not just a flower, and say that that is going to actually stay with the person for the longest time. On that note, we're going to slip into a very quick break. Coming up on the other side, we bring you a chat with Suraj Barjatia, his unfiltered big city dreams from small town realities. His new show is out. He'll tell you about that in a moment from now.
कभी सोचा नहीं था.
Now on, women's sports will be only for women.
President Donald Trump on Wednesday signed an executive order to exclude transgender girls and women from participating in female school sports under his interpretation of Title IX. Reuters correspondent Dan Trotta explains.
Title IX is a law that prevents discrimination on the basis of sex in education. The Trump administration intends to use Title IX as a means to protect women in sports, that is, non-transgender women in sports, to protect them from having to compete against transgender athletes. That's where there could be a true change in policy if it holds up in court.
With my action this afternoon, we're putting every school receiving taxpayer dollars on notice that if you let men take over women's sports teams or invade your locker rooms, you will be investigated for violations of Title IX and risk your federal funding. There will be no federal funding.
Critics say Trump's directive stomps on the rights of a small minority of athletes, but Republicans say the directive restores fairness in sports and protects girls in schools.
So it's something of an open question, but the real issue, as the president of the NCAA said, is that there are less than 10 transgender athletes among the 500,000 participating in collegiate sports. At the high school level, it's impossible to say exactly, but the best estimates are that there are a couple of dozen.
The war on women's sports is over.
Trump's order also instructs the State Department to demand changes within the International Olympic Committee to prevent transgender athletes from competing.
Trump cannot dictate to the International Olympic Committee what its rules ought to be. And this is a matter that has undergone some serious review multiple times by the Olympic Committee.
The Trump administration has taken aim broadly at transgender rights since taking office on January 20th. While Trump supporters have hailed the president for making good on campaign promises, critics say Trump has overstepped his executive authority.
Under the Trump administration, we will defend the proud tradition of female athletes, and we will not allow men to beat up, injure, and cheat our women and our girls. From now on, women's sports will be only for women.
For a lot of trans youth out there, it just means, once again, their country's declaring war on them. And this is going to affect people's mental health. I'll admit it's affected mine, and I'm 53 years old. I mean, but for young people coming up, especially for these kids, and especially in middle school and high school, this is very difficult. This is brutal on them. It's harsh on their families. And don't think that this is the end of it. This is part of a whole program to essentially erase transgender Americans from American life. And yes, just to note, transgender Americans are just that. We're Americans.
Today is another example, at the highest level in seat and position power in the world, watching the new president of the United States articulate complete, utter nonsense and doing complete harm to the most vulnerable communities in his own society within the boundaries of the United States, which will have generational harm long term.
One win does not make domination. One kid winning one race at a national championship swim meet 3 years ago is not domination. But they're trying to say this fear because, let's face it, Donald Trump knows he's lying about transgender Americans. Riley Gaines knows she's lying about transgender athletes. The thing that they're banking on is that you, the average person out there, doesn't know they're lying. That's what they're banking on.
Female athletes have been forced onto the front lines, and men claiming to be girls have stolen more than 3,500 victories. That's a lot. And invaded more than 11,000 competitions designed for women.
First of all, the numbers they don't exist. Understand that there's 0.01% gender variant people living in our society as a whole. So it's a very tiny, tiny grouping of people that he's actually targeting. And certainly the numbers in terms of gender performance are filled with inaccuracies as well. Those numbers just don't exist. And it's incomprehensible of somebody in the highest seat in the world, the most powerful seat in the world, to project such misinformation, not just in the United States, but globally on such an issue that has a tremendous impact in the United States, but also worldwide.
We have to learn now. If we wait until the next edition of the games and it does not work, it's too late. So we have to work at the moment where overall we are enjoying this huge success.
Welcome back. It's time on the program where we take you through stories from India and across the globe. Let's start with what's happening nationally, upgrading and transforming the way cities in Uttar Pradesh are connected. Work is underway in at least 96 national highways projects with a collective length of close to 2,600 kilometers. At least 77 of these projects' collective length is about 1,930 kilometers, will be completed in 2025. The longest of these are the 100-kilometer project on NH9, which connects Hapur bypass with Muradabad. The Central Zoo Authority has approved India's first white tiger breeding centre in Madhya Pradesh's Rewa district. This initiative marks a significant step in wildlife conservation, especially since Rewa is historically linked to the last known wild white tiger. The breeding centre is expected to enhance biodiversity conservation, promote wildlife tourism and create job opportunities for the local population. India is turning into an SUV country. The culture and meaning of cars is changing as the country gets richer. The number of cars on Indian streets rose from 19 million in 2012 to 49 million in 2022. Car ownership per 1,000 people doubled from 17 to 34 in the same period. Just 5 years ago, every second car sold in India was a hatchback. Today, that is down to 1 in 4. While more than 50% of the new sales are SUVs, according to Hyundai Motors. Union Housing and Urban Affairs Minister Manohar Lal has said that India will soon have the second largest metro network in the world, underlining the 997 kilometers of metro rail that is currently under construction in the country. The metro system is expanded rapidly since 2014 from 248 kilometers across 5 cities a decade ago to about 1,000 kilometers across 21. Apple CEO Tim Cook has confirmed that Apple Intelligence will be rolling out its localized English to the Indian market in April, along with a slew of other languages. Cook also said that the iPhone active installed base grew to an all-time high in every geographic segment. He was speaking to analysts after the company released its financial results for the fiscal of 2025 first quarter ending December 28, 2024, posting the quarterly revenue of 124.3 billion, up 4% year over year. The New York Fashion Week kicked off on Thursday with the 3 designers at the NYMD, or the Men's Day morning session, showcasing their new collection. Veteran designer Aaron Potts, known for his genderless aesthetic, presented a collection that was born out of displeasure of the political climate. He wanted his show to mimic the energy of Manhattan city streets. Britain's Prince William visited a Scottish community centre on Thursday and had a go at assembling a wooden birdhouse. The Carnoustie and Monifess Men's Shed is a community centre run by volunteers that help men and women to learn various skills such as woodwork, crafting and gardening, making friends at the same time. The Prince's visit to Scotland is focused on organisations that help tackle rural isolation and loneliness. Sharon Abon says that the planned Black Sabbath reunion will the husband Ozzy's final performance. The gig will feature guitarist Tony, the bassist Geezer Butler and drummer Bill Ward, all along with the charismatic frontman Osbourne, pioneering heavy metal music in the early 1970s, with hits such as War Pigs, Paranoid and Iron Man. Since their last performance together in 2005, Black Sabbath has played a partial reunion but never in their original lineup. Cristiano Ronaldo fans gathered in Times Square to unveil the Portuguese soccer player's 12-foot-long bronze statue along with its creator, sculptor Sergio Fornari. Fornari built it to pay tribute to athlete's career and global influence on his 40th birthday on the 5th of February. He said that he's now taking the statue on a tour around the world. All right, those were some of the top stories that are taking place in India and across the globe. But let's switch chapters and talk about entertainment. It's Friday after all, like we say, and bring you this chat. Chat with a man called Suraj Barjatia, the man who gave some of Indian cinema's most loved family films. And now there's a new story brewing with him. It's called Bada Naam Karenge, which is now out on Sony Live. It is about the hustle, the small town dreams, the reality of making it big. But in today's world, do small towns really struggle? Or is that how we see it as? Does knowing English still put you at a disadvantage? Well, and how has storytelling actually evolved over the years? Here's a chat.
कई बार ये होता है ना कि नज़रिया देखने का, स्मॉल टाउन इज़ लुक डाउन अपॉन, हिंदी भाषी है तो इंग्लिश नहीं बोलता तो कूल नहीं है या पढ़ा लिखा नहीं है. आपको लगता है ये मानसिकता आज भी है कि आप अपनी क्षेत्रीय भाषा में आप ज्ञानी नहीं हो सकते, आप स्मार्ट नहीं हो सकते जब तक आप अंग्रेज़ी नहीं बोलते? ये थोड़ा चेंज करने की आवश्यकता है, आपको लगता है?
और हो रही है आवश्यकता
आपको
हो रही, बिकॉज 100% इन अ कम्पिटिटिव वर्ल्ड अगर आपको इंग्लिश नहीं आती तो यू आर पुट एट अ बैक फुट. बट अगर आप देखें आज बिजनेस वर्ल्ड में, हमारे सिनेमा में भी, जब तक आप मासेस के पास नहीं जाएंगे आप राइज नहीं कर सकते. आप फिल्मों में देखिए, आज जो फिल्में चल रही हैं, दे आर ऑल कॉमन मैन स्टोरीज. जब तक आप छोटे शहरों में नहीं जाएंगे, वो ऑडियंस को यू कैन नॉट स्टार्ट अ बिगर बिजनेस.
पर आपके किरदार इस सीरीज़ में भी क्या इस कन्फ्यूजन से जुड़ते हैं कि क्या जो वैल्यू सिस्टम्स हमें हमारे शहर में हमारे माँ बाप ने हमें परिवार में सिखाए और जो हम यहाँ देख रहे हैं, जहाँ पर हमने अपना लाइफ बनाने के लिए, अपना कर्म करने के लिए जहाँ आए, इसमें अंतर है. तो किसको चुने?
वो बिल्कुल सही चुनना, बट उनकी वैल्यूज इतनी इंटैक्ट है कि वो बिगड़ते नहीं हैं. इसलिए जो मेन है कि आप संस्कार देंगे ना, उसके बाद अलाउ देम टू फ्लाई. तो बिगड़ते नहीं, बिकॉज वो बिगड़ने नहीं आए, पर उनको निभाना भी पड़ता ही है. आज अगर माँ बोलती है बेटी को कि तू जा रही है यहाँ से, अकेली रहेगी, वहाँ कभी गई नहीं बम्बई, तो ऑटो में नहीं बैठना 6 बजे के बाद. अब पहली बार वो गई तो उसको बैठना ही पड़ा. अब अगर मैं ये माँ को बोलूँगी तो माँ घबराएगी, तो मैं बोलती नहीं, माँ मैं मैनेज कर लूँगी. तो ऐसे हम सीखते हैं जीवन, क्योंकि कंफर्ट जोन से तो निकलना पड़ता है. तो ये
तो एक और बात बताइए, 70 mm के पर्दे से 6 इंच का जो स्क्रीन है, ये ट्रांजिशन क्यों?
बिकॉज आपके पास बड़ी ऑडियंस है, ज़्यादा ऑडियंस है. यहाँ आने के पहले तो हम तो टीवी में आए, लास्ट 15 साल से हम टीवी कर रहे हैं.
टीवी तो कर रहे हैं, टीवी भी कर रहे हैं. आप बच्चों के लिए एनिमेशन भी करते हैं. माय किड्स आर ह्यूज फैंस ऑफ डॉक्टर ऑक्टोपस. तो वो तो आप ही करते हैं. वो जो डॉक्टर दैट ही गिव्स ऑल द नो बाइनॉक्स, डॉक्टर बाइनॉक्स जी, तो डॉक्टर बाइनॉक्स आप ही का है. तो ये OTT से ट्रांजिशन परमानेंट है या सिर्फ इस बात के लिए?
नो परमानेंट है.
फ्रॉम 70 mm टू
परमानेंट, क्योंकि जैसे कई कहानी होती है, वो एक कहानी आप 2.5 घंटे में कंप्लीट कर सकते हैं. कुछ कहानी है जिसको आपको 6 महीने तक चलाना है वो टीवी में, और कुछ कहानी है जो आप 9 एपिसोड, जैसे ये 9 एपिसोड है, तो हर कहानी अपना एक वजूद बोलती है कि मैं इतने में कंप्लीट होना चाहती हूँ. और हम तो स्टोरी टेलर्स हैं, हमें तो प्लेटफॉर्म चाहिए, जितनी ज़्यादा ऑडियंस के हम कहानी बोल सकें. तो आई थिंक इट्स ऑल्सो ग्रोइंग.
सो बट यू थिंक इट्स अ रिस्क कि अगर OTT नहीं चली तो सूरज बरजातिया's फॉर्मूला डज नॉट वर्क ऑन OTT प्लेटफॉर्म?
इसमें बहुत बार ये तो लाइफ ही रिस्क है. पर हम हर मेकर का एक बिलीफ है, और वो बिलीफ बहुत ज़रूरी है. एंड देन वी लर्न विद एवरी फिल्म. आई हैव ऑल्सो लर्न विद एवरी फिल्म. मतलब मेरी जितनी फिल्में, मैंने सोचा था जो फिल्म मुझे लगा हाउसफुल ओपन होगी, हाउसफुल नहीं ओपन हुई. जो मुझे लगा नहीं होगी वो ओपन हो जाती है. तो एवरी फिल्म टीचेस अस.
सो व्हाट वाज योर लर्निंग? लेट्स से कि आपने बीच में आपका एक हाइटस था, 9 साल के बाद आपने पिक्चर बनाई थी, अलग टोन था. फिर उसके बाद 3-4 साल में आपने फिर ऊंचाई बनाई. तो व्हाट वाज द ट्रांजिशन? व्हाई डिड यू गो इनटू अ ब्रेक कि राजश्री तो अपना काम कर रही है पर मैं कुछ नहीं कर रहा हूँ, एंड देन व्हाई डिड यू कम बैक?
नहीं, उस समय ये भी था मेरे में कि कंपनी के लिए वी वर मेकिंग अ लॉट ऑफ टीवी शोज़, OTT की प्लानिंग चल रही थी, मेरे बेटे का लॉन्च था एज ए डायरेक्टर. तो एज ए मेकर बड़ा सेल्फिश हूँ मैं. तो मैंने कहा कि नहीं, आई हैव टू हैव माई टाइम टू वर्क ऑन मी, नहीं तो मैं नहीं करूँगा. बिकॉज ये मेरा एक प्रॉमिस है कि मैं खुद लिखता हूँ और फिर मैं एक एक कैरेक्टर जीता हूँ। तो गैप आया, उसके बाद फिर कई बार कुछ कहानियाँ रह जाती हैं। तो पैंडेमिक का टाइम था, सब बोल रहे थे क्या चलना चाहिए, कुछ नहीं चल रहा, क्या है। तो मैंने कहा जब कुछ नहीं चल रहा तो कुछ ऐसा बनाए जो मन में है बनाने के लिए। और फिर ऊंचाई की कहानी मेरे से छूटे। मेरे सबसे बड़ा चैलेंज था, क्योंकि मैं कभी आउटडोर इतना किया ही नहीं। मतलब मैंने लाइफ में जितनी मंदिर के सेट, जितने बेडरूम के सेट बनाए, किसी ने नहीं बनाए।
नहीं बनाए।
आई कैन टेल यू हाउ एवरी वेजिटेबल इज मेड, बिकॉज
क्योंकि सब वो किचन वहीं पर।
बट ऊंचाई पहली बार, बेस कैंप पहली बार आउटडोर, एंड देन आई हैड टू वर्क विद मिस्टर बच्चन। वो अपनी तो कब आवाज़ आती है कि आप शुरू कर सूरज, तो बस उसका वेट होता है एज इट।
हाँ, बट फिर जब ऊंचाई को, जैसे लोग कहते हैं, कमर्शियल सक्सेस नहीं मिला, इट वन नेशनल अवार्ड रिकग्निशन, यू वर अवार्डेड फॉर इट। तो वो कभी आपको खटकता है यार, इतनी अच्छी पिक्चर बनाई, इतना अच्छा कॉन्सेप्ट, और फिर लोग नहीं देखा। आई मीन व्हाट इज देयर इन द पल्स?
ऊंचाई कम चली, चली अपनी जगह। आई गॉट अ बिग ऑडियंस, 50+, कम चली जितना मैं चाह रहा था। हाँ, फील तो होता ही कि और बिगर ऑडियंस,
ओटीटी पे भी देखा,
बिगर ऑडियंस पे जाए। उसका कारण ये भी था, एकदम पैंडेमिक के बाद रिलीज़ हुई पिक्चर, और कई जगह, कई शहरों में तो सिनेमा भी नहीं खुले थे उस समय। बट देन ओवर द इयर्स यू कम टू नो, कुछ चलती हैं, कुछ कम चलती हैं। कुछ ऐसी फिल्में मेरी उस समय नहीं चली, आज दे आर टॉक्ड अबाउट। आज मैं जाता हूँ, दे रिमेंबर मी, आई एम सो सरप्राइज। कुछ फिल्में, जैसे मेरी एक फिल्म थी हम साथ साथ हैं, तो उस समय हम आपके कौन के बाद आई थी, तो 60% चली थी हम आपके कौन, इतनी नहीं चली थी। आज ऑन सैटेलाइट इट्स सो पॉपुलर। तो आज विवाह है, विवाह उस समय बड़ी हिट थी, बट जितना मुझे आज उसके लिए रिकग्निशन मिलता है, सो आई एम सरप्राइज व्हाई।
हाँ, उसकी रील्स अभी भी चलती हैं, उसके सीन्स चलते हैं।
All right, let's move on the other spectrum of cinema. There is Suraj Barjatia on one, and then there is Himesh Reshammiya on the other. Let's talk about that also for a little bit. Now, forget King Kong versus Godzilla. We have two new titans fighting it out for box office domination this Friday. On one hand, we've got Interstellar. That's being re-released in theatres 10 years after their original release. And on the other, we have Himesh Reshammiya's gun-toting avatar, the OG badass Ravi Kumar. Now, who will emerge victorious? Abhijit Bhatt has his take.
क्या आप इस फ्राइडे के लिए एक्साइटेड हैं? अगर नहीं है तो हो जाइए, बिकॉज दिस फ्राइडे द वर्ल्ड विल बी gearing up for a clash of the titans. On one hand, we have a hugely talented artist who is universally acclaimed for his craft and has millions of fans across the globe. And on the other hand, we have Christopher Nolan. क्रिस्टोफर की रातों की नींद, और शुड वी से तंदूरी नाइट्स की नींद आजकल काफी खराब हो रखी होगी. Reason being that even though his 2014 film Interstellar is getting re-released this Friday, it will be clashing with Himesh Reshammiya's badass Ravi Kumar. Forget 2023's Barbenheimer. It's Inter Kumar that we are rooting for. और वैसे भी जिन वर्म होल्स में स्पेस टाइम डायमेंशंस डिस्टॉर्ट हो जाते हैं, उन वर्म होल्स में रवि कुमार अपने पजामे सुखाया करता है नोलन चौधरी. Seriously, did Christopher Nolan really think that he stood a chance? After all, badass रवि कुमार के सामने तो डार्क नाइट राइजेस का बेन भी दया बेन है. क्योंकि तलवार को कहते हैं स्वॉर्ड, डेटा केबल की होती है कॉर्ड, और हिमेश है हमारे लॉर्ड.
10 साल पहले रिलीज हुए इंटरस्टेलर के ट्रेलर पे अभी तक हैं सिर्फ 40 मिलियन व्यूज, और 30 दिन पहले रिलीज हुए बैडएस रवि कुमार के ट्रेलर पे हैं 82 मिलियन व्यूज.
वैसे देखा जाए तो these two movies aren't that different. इंटरस्टेलर में the crew uses a spaceship, और इस मूवी में भी लॉर्ड हिमेश is using his own spaceship, जिसे वो प्यार से हेलीकॉप्टर बुलाते हैं. But that's not the point. इंटरस्टेलर में वो लोग जहाज उड़ाते हैं, बैडएस रवि कुमार और लॉर्ड हिमेश कार उड़ा रहे हैं. इंटरस्टेलर में माइकल केन says do not go gentle into the night, and हिमेश says don't go gentle into the तंदूरी nights. इंटरस्टेलर में टार्स है, और बैडएस रवि कुमार मूवी से पहले भी सिगरेट का टार्स आपको बीमार, बहुत बीमार कर देगा वाला एड चलेगा ही चलेगा. You get the connection? टार्स, टार,
टार
तार बिजली से पतले हमारे।
इंटरस्टेलर में मैथ्यू मैककॉनहे है और बैडएस रवि कुमार मूवी की स्टार कास्ट को देख के भी कई लोग पूछेंगे मैथ्यू में कौन है ये। बाकी सब छोड़ो, न्यूमरोलॉजी पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू से भी हिमेश इज अ क्लियर विनर। देखो मैं समझाता हूँ। उनकी मूवी रिलीज हो रही है 7th को। हिमेश नाम में है 6 वर्ड्स, रेशमिया नाम में है 10 वर्ड्स, बिकॉज अब वो डबल एम यूज करते हैं ना। तो 6 + 10 इज हाउ मच? 16। 16 का सम टोटल कितना हुआ? 1 + 6 इज 7। Told you, clear winner. All things said and done. आप क्या देखना पसंद करेंगे? दिल का ताजमहल या फिर ब्लैक होल्स में होता हुआ टाइम डायलेशन?
All right, you can take your pick on what you want to watch this Friday. But we're not done giving you news from the world of entertainment just yet. The biggest Grammy moments, Bollywood's veteran caught in a controversy. Here's your weekly entertainment lowdown. There's some of Kanye West and Bianca's after-party moments. There is some of Mamta Kulkarni losing her Mahamandaleshwar title. This is Shosha's Titas bringing you the top stories of the week.
Hello there. Let's take a quick look at the week that was. Kanye West and wife Bianca Censori left everyone shocked with their appearance at the 67th Grammy Awards. They quickly caught attention at the after party, with fans sharing videos of the couple getting intimate on the dance floor, licking each other while grinding to the beat. Controversy also hit the roof when Bianca took off her fur coat to reveal a sheer dress that left little to imagination, giving the impression that she was posing completely naked. With the internet slamming them, Kanye later defended his partner, calling her the most Googled person on this planet. In a now deleted post on Instagram stories, he reportedly wrote, "We beat the Grammys." And speaking of the prestigious music awards, Chandrika Tandon, an Indian-American business leader, musician and sister of business magnate Indra Nooyi, won an honor at the 67th Grammy Awards for her album Triveni in the Best New Age, Ambient or Chant album category. However, the awards seem to have hit the wrong note with Indian music lovers. 4-time Grammy Award winner and Indian tabla maestro Zakir Hussain was left out from the In Memoriam segment. Amit Trivedi exclusively spoke to us, reacting on the same and calling it Grammy's loss. The late icon became the first musician from India to receive 3 Grammys at last year's ceremony. In a new development in Justin Baldoni and Blake Lively's sexual harassment case, the It Ends With Us director made changes in his lawsuit against Blake and her husband, Ryan Reynolds, including details of his meeting with an intimacy coordinator for a few scenes in the film. According to Justin, Blake skipped the meeting, leaving him in an awkward position to relay the intimacy coordinator's messages to her. And these notes about the on-screen portrayal of pleasure and foreplay later became the basis of the sexual harassment suit she filed against him. Meanwhile, the first court hearing recently took place where their lawyers engaged in a heated exchange. Udit Narayan has been facing flack online after he kissed his female fans during a live performance. In the viral videos doing the rounds, one of his female fans turned around and kissed him on the cheek, following which he returned her gesture by kissing her on her lips. As he continues to receive backlash from netizens, old clips of him kissing Alka Yagnik and Shreya Ghoshal resurfaced. He went on to justify his act, calling himself decent and stressing on sharing a deep, pure and unbreakable bond with his fans. Singer Abhijit Bhattacharya spoke exclusively to us, defending his peer, recalling how he had female fans pouncing on him in front of Lata Mangeshkar many moons back. Mamta Kulkarni, who was recently appointed as Mahamandaleshwar of the Kinnar Akhara during Mahakumbh 2025, has been removed from her position within a week of her receiving the epithet. The decision to bestow the title upon her met with strong opposition from several religious leaders, including Baba Ramdev and representatives of the Bageshwar Dham. Kinnar Akhara also raised objections due to her bold persona as a film star, a topless photo shoot she did in the 1990s and reported criminal history. It has also been alleged that Mamta paid Rs 10 crore to attain the title, which she later denied, stressing on her dire financial state. That's all for this week. See you soon.
All right, next we bring you a special segment on the financial markets powered by Money Control Pro, Money Control's premium destination for investing and business insights. Let's start with how markets are pegged to open this Friday morning. GIFT Nifty trends indicate a muted beginning for the Indian equity indices. Investors await outcome of the RBI policy meet scheduled later today, where a rate cut is widely expected. US stocks ended mixed, with the S&P and Nasdaq gaining while the Dow weakening as the investors digested earnings releases. Asian indices were mixed today as traders await US job data. Sector in focus this morning, the regional health hubs are gradually gaining importance with an excellent catchment demand in areas like Ranchi, Lucknow, etc. Previously, government hospitals or standalone private hospitals catered to demands in these regions, and the critical care needs were often catered by the national level centres. The advent of multi-speciality hospitals in regional centres aims to meet this demand-supply gap. You can log into Money Control Pro to find out more about the healthcare and hospital sector and various other actionable insights on the market. It is a premier destination for all the investing views and financial insights you will ever need, brought to you by Money Control. All right, with that, another quick break. We are back with the moment of the day.
Now on, women's sports will be only for women.
President Donald Trump on Wednesday signed an executive order to exclude transgender girls and women from participating in female school sports under his interpretation of Title IX. Reuters correspondent Dan Trotta explains.
Title IX is a law that prevents discrimination on the basis of sex in education. The Trump administration intends to use Title IX as a means to protect women in sports, that is, non-transgender women in sports, to protect them from having to compete against transgender athletes. That's where there could be a true change in policy if it holds up in court.
With my action this afternoon, we're putting every school receiving taxpayer dollars on notice that if you let men take over women's sports teams or invade your locker rooms, you will be investigated for violations of Title IX and risk your federal funding. There will be no federal funding.
Critics say Trump's directive stomps on the rights of a small minority of athletes, but Republicans say the directive restores fairness in sports and protects girls in schools.
So it's something of an open question. But the real issue, as the president of the NCAA said, is that there are less than 10 transgender athletes among the 500,000 participating in collegiate sports. At the high school level, it's impossible to say exactly, but the best estimates are that there are a couple of dozen.
The war on women's sports is over.
Trump's order also instructs the State Department to demand changes within the International Olympic Committee to prevent transgender athletes from competing.
Trump cannot dictate to the International Olympic Committee what its rules ought to be. And this is a matter that has undergone some serious review multiple times by the Olympic Committee.
The Trump administration has taken aim broadly at transgender rights since taking office on January 20th. While Trump supporters have hailed the president for making good on campaign promises, critics say Trump has overstepped his executive authority.
Under the Trump administration, we will defend the proud tradition of female athletes, and we will not allow men to beat up, injure, and cheat our women and our girls. From now on, women's sports will be only for women.
For a lot of trans youth out there, it just means, once again, their country's declaring war on them. And this is going to affect people's mental health. I'll admit it's affected mine, and I'm 53 years old. I mean, but for young people coming up, especially for these kids, and especially in middle school and high school, this is very difficult. This is brutal on them. It's harsh on their families. And don't think that this is the end of it. This is part of a whole program to essentially erase transgender Americans from American life. And yes, just to note, transgender Americans are just that. We're Americans.
Today is another example, at the highest level in seat and position and power in the world, watching the new president of the United States articulate complete, utter nonsense and doing complete harm to the most vulnerable communities in his own society within the boundaries of the United States, which will have generational harm long term.
One win does not make domination. One kid winning one race at a national championship swim meet 3 years ago is not domination. But they're trying to say this fear because, let's face it, Donald Trump knows he's lying about transgender Americans. Riley Gaines knows she's lying about transgender athletes. The thing that they're banking on is that you, the average person out there, doesn't know they're lying. That's what they're banking on.
Female athletes have been forced onto the front lines, and men claiming to be girls have stolen more than 3,500 victories. That's a lot. And invaded more than 11,000 competitions designed for women.
First of all, the numbers they don't exist. Understand that there's 0.01% gender variant people living in our society as a whole. So it's a very tiny, tiny grouping of people that he's actually targeting. And certainly the numbers in terms of gender performance are filled with inaccuracies as well. Those numbers just don't exist. And
All right, as we come towards the end of the bulletin, let's give you something to smile about. Ed Sheeran is in India, remember, and getting a full Desi treatment for his mathematics tour. The British singer is currently in Chennai ahead of a concert in the city. And gosh, that's what he really took. The video is getting all the chumpy traditions, is getting a lot of love online as well. And the singer himself was left quite bewildered at the intensity of that massage.
Yes, right.
In fact, that's not all. Ed Sheeran was also joined by Oscar winner and composer A.R. Rahman on stage as the duo sort of belted out a remix of Ed Sheeran's Shape of You and Rahman's Urvashi. Nothing could dim their shine really except a faulty mic.
What makes my...
Now on women's sports will be only for women.
President Donald Trump on Wednesday signed an executive order to exclude transgender girls and women from participating in female school sports under his interpretation of Title IX. Reuters correspondent Dan Trotta explains.
Title IX is a law that prevents discrimination on the basis of sex in education. The Trump administration intends to use Title IX as a means to protect women in sports, that is, non-transgender women in sports, to protect them from having to compete against transgender athletes. That's where there could be a true change in policy if it holds up in court.
With my action this afternoon, we're putting every school receiving taxpayer dollars on notice that if you let men take over women's sports teams or invade your locker rooms, you will be investigated for violations of Title IX and risk your federal funding. There will be no federal funding.
Critics say Trump's directive stomps on the rights of a small minority of athletes, but Republicans say the directive restores fairness in sports and protects girls in schools.
So it's something of an open question. But the real issue, as the president of the NCAA said, is that there are less than 10 transgender athletes among the 500,000 participating in collegiate sports. At the high school level, it's impossible to say exactly, but the best estimates are that there are a couple of dozen.
The war on women's sports is over.
Trump's order also instructs the State Department to demand changes within the International Olympic Committee to prevent transgender athletes from competing.
Trump cannot dictate to the International Olympic Committee what its rules ought to be. And this is a matter that has undergone some serious review multiple times by the Olympic Committee.
The Trump administration has taken aim broadly at transgender rights since taking office on January 20th. While Trump supporters have hailed the president for making good on campaign promises, critics say Trump has overstepped his